There is a place that's safe, here in your presence, Lord. There is a place where fears fade away, here in your presence, Lord. So we draw nearer, 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 Lord, nearer to your throne. So we draw nearer, 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 Lord, nearer to your throne. There is a place of hope, here in your presence, Lord. Sorrows they
The humanity of Christ. I have to preface this sermon with a little bit of stuff. You know, I've been really struck with the idea of how can God, Jesus, be fully God and fully man. It's one of the things I struggle with throughout my Christian life, ever since I was a young person. How does that work? How can you be 200%? How can you be 100% God and 100% man? And how does that work? How does that work? I don't know about you, but I'm someone who has to figure out how things work. Anybody else with me on that? I remember my mom telling me I would take apart like the radio. And like, wasn't very good at putting things back, you know? And I like the things that have like certain screws for 6 different sections, you know, that helped a lot. You know, my son, even today, he's like, first couple words he knew was screwdriver and hammer. And he wants to, we gotta be careful. There's a lot, we don't really childproof our outlets, our electrical outlets. So please pray for me. Pray for him. So, you know, he has a screwdriver and he wants to take things apart. I think there's something about us that want to take things apart and rebuild them, right? We got to figure out how things work. Am I right? Who in here likes to work on cars? Yeah, even my sister, Brenda, now that you're in your field. Or who wants to figure out, I don't know, something in the workplace, or how computers work, or programs, or for those who are accountants, right, or some other field, or even who wants to figure out people? Who in here has for sociology or psychology or any of these things, or nursing? We're always trying to figure things out, and so then you have these fields of study, right? These ologies. The study of, fill in the blank. For me, I wanted to, how does God work? I wanted to figure out God. I was a religion major, learning about other religions. How does that work? How do I work? But this idea of how Jesus is fully God and fully man is, for lack of a better word, confusing. Isn't it? I think God in general is confusing, isn't he? Why does he do this? Why doesn't he do that? Why does he allow this to happen? He should have done this. Why doesn't God just appear and so everyone believes him? Why does God make me a robot? Why does God make me a choice? Why did God put that apple tree in the garden? We always, as humans, don't we have such an inquisitive nature to figure things out? For me, how is Jesus God and man? So I think there's a tendency to make God more one than the other. What would you say? More God or more man? More man? I personally made it more into God than man. I thought of Jesus like, if you can imagine, like a Middle Eastern Superman. Why is that funny? For most of my life, I just see Jesus as like walking with some sort of holy force field that keeps all sin away from him. I used to ask the question, why did Jesus go to the cross? Couldn't he just forgive everyone for where he was? Or did Jesus feel pain on the cross? I thought of Jesus as just someone who was so perfect and loving and created this ideal that I could never even come close to. I saw a lot of the God in Jesus, but I've neglected something. The humanity of Jesus. And that's what I want to talk about today. So when we're trying to figure out how is Jesus God and man, I think I want to use the language that Jesus used. So I want to look at John chapter 11, starting in verse 17. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, he went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had only been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord. She told him, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who has come into the world. And after she had said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, she said, and is asking for you. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had come with Mary in the house comforted her, noticed how quickly she got up and went out. They followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews that had come along with her also weeping. He was deeply moved in the spirit. He was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Jesus wept. When the Jews saw how he loved him, but some of them said, could he who opened the eyes of blind men have kept this man from dying? Jesus once more, deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laying across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there for 4 days. Jesus said, did I not tell you that you believe? If you believe, you will see the glory of God. You know, the shortest verse of the Bible is this one. Verse 35. Jesus wept. I want to focus on that. Jesus cried. Jesus was moved to tears. To me, this is quite striking. Because my image of Jesus is one that felt no wrong, no pain, no nothing. He was just loving. He was something that I could never be. He was God. He could destroy mountains. He could heal the sick. He almost didn't touch the ground when he floated. He was Superman. But Jesus wept. You know what? I weep. I cry. I'm sad. I'm confused. I'm overwhelmed. Sometimes I'm very, very scared. When I was in Iraq, I was very, very scared. I literally knew that I could die at any moment. That's a weird feeling. But after a while, you get kind of used to it. You get used to fear, don't you? It's like, hey, it's fear. It's my buddy. One of the problems when you come back is like, you're still like in anxiety mode and super fear, but you're like, everyone else is calm. And you're like, what's wrong with you? Don't you know what could happen? What do you mean you didn't lock the door? Someone could come in. You know, you're like, emotions are on you. Jesus wept. He cried. I think that's remarkable because did Jesus know Lazarus would be raised from the dead? Yes, he did. Did Jesus know that Lazarus would be resurrected at the end? Yes, he did. He says so. Did Jesus know why he came there? Yes, he did. And yet, he wept. He cried. Even so much that the people around him says, wow, he loved this man so much that he wept for him. To me, this is the humanity of Christ. The wide spectrum of emotions that Jesus exhibited makes him a lot more human to me. Jesus is fully God, but he's also fully man. If you look in Philippians chapter 2, it gives you a nice little snapshot that what Jesus did is he emptied himself, or he limited himself, or he gave up his position as God in heaven to be born a man. He limited himself. Who in here would willingly limit themselves for someone else? He limited himself to be a human, to live the life we could not. The only thing I can think of is I am a man of 33 years who is in decent shape. Do not correct me on that. I feel like I'm in decent shape. I can pass an 18-year-old PT test. I'm not going to tell you my score, but I can pass. I would not limit myself physically. It's something that I have pride in at the moment. I feel pride in my education and my intelligence and in all the areas. I feel a certain amount of pride because my skill and the effort of God has made those things possible. But Jesus gave up his position in heaven to be human. The only thing I can equate that to is me becoming a quadriplegic. To limit myself that much. And even that's a poor illustration. Who would willingly become a quadriplegic for somebody else? Who would willingly give up their power, their strength, and limit themselves because you just love someone that much? That's a lot to ask. And Jesus didn't even ask us. He did it anyway. Jesus wept. Deep emotions. In Matthew chapter 26, it says that Jesus, I'm going to read to you. In verse 38, he said, this is Jesus about to be going to Jerusalem to be crucified. He said, my soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. Going a little further, he fell with his face to the ground and prayed, my Father, if it is possible that this cup be taken from me, and not as I will, but as you will. You know what that sounds like to me? A man who's in deep despair and sorrow. He knows what's over that next hill. He knows what he's going to do. He knows that he's about to be crucified. People will turn their back on him and deny him. People will scream out for the innocence of a murderer rather than Jesus Christ, when just days before he healed the sick. Jesus would be whipped, punched, scarred, and then led on an arduous journey to be crucified. And Jesus was, dare I say, scared. Jesus felt anger in the temple when people used the church as a place for a bank and money changing. He got angry. He flipped over tables and said, get out. But we look at emotions as somewhat evil, don't we? Like a weakness. Men, do we cry? No, I just have allergies. Are you crying, Leon? No. I just swallowed my spit wrong or something. You ever do that? You're like, I'm not crying. Something in my eye. Oh, men, we are strong, solid, aren't we? I think we're probably more emotional. We get angry pretty quickly, don't we, guys? Did you disrespect me? Men, we get pretty upset.
No.
We look at women like they're the emotional ones, right? I think we're just as emotional. Our children. How emotional are kids? For those who have teenagers or people going through puberty, are they just not like, it seems like this goes off, and this is on, and it's out of control. It's out of control. But it's weird. Even though children are out of control, what do they always ask their parents after they tell them to do something? Why? Why do I have to go to school, Dad? What do you mean, why? So you can get educated and get a job because then I don't have to pay for you for the rest of your life? You don't love me, Dad? What? Huh? I love you. Children, ruled by emotions, but always wanting to figure out. And see, this is what kind of motivated me to think about the humanity of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ talks a whole lot about things I should do, but I always have this question in my mind. Why? How does that work? And so when I see that Jesus wept, that Jesus had sorrow, that Jesus had anger, sometimes that's not quite compatible to my understanding of Jesus, if you understand what I'm talking about. Because Jesus to me was just like Superman. Nothing fazed him. Nothing bothered him. But when I read the Bible, the humanity of Christ comes out more and more to me. You know, he loved Lazarus so much that even though he knew he was going to raise him from the dead, he still cried. Man, that shows that Jesus loved Lazarus. That's literally what people said. He loved Lazarus so much, he cried. Wow, how can that be? If you ever lost a loved one in your life, and you're a Christian, you know you're going to see them again, right? But don't you cry? Don't you feel grief and shame and just, I wish I would have done this, I wish I would have done that. And as a Christian, I almost felt like that was bad. Like I'm sinning somehow if I'm crying or showing emotion or grieving. I'm glad Jesus wept because he tells me it's okay to weep. I'm glad that Jesus tells me or shows me that he felt sorrow and anger, because I feel those too. Some men in here right now are like, oh, Leon, hold on. You're getting touchy-feely, man. Touchy-feely. Ain't that right, Mr. Google? Mm-hmm. I'm hardcore. Right? What makes the green grass grow? For those who know, you know what I'm talking about. But I think it's okay to show emotions. Because, you know, when I see Jesus Christ, he explains his dad in emotional terms. Wait a second. What? Jesus explains his dad in human emotional terms. He didn't pull out a physics book and say, well, see, God is just endorphins in your brain. And it's connected to your nervous system. That's connected to your, I don't know, anatomy a long time ago. He did not pull out a history book and say, oh, see, this. He did not pull out some mathematics book or physics book or science book and say, see, this is heaven, and Jesus and God reside in the nebulous over here, and the telescope. No, they didn't do that. How did he explain his Father? I want you to turn with me to John chapter 14. I'm going to read to you 15 through 21. It says, if you love me, you will obey what I command. And I will ask the Father, who will give you another counselor to be with you forever, the Spirit of truth. The world cannot accept him because it sees him nor knows him. Basically, because they don't understand him. But you know him, for he lives in you and with you. I will not leave you as orphans. I will come to you. Before long, the world will not see me anymore, but you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. And on that day you will realize that I am in my Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. Whoever has my commands and obeys them, he is the one who loves me. And he who loves me will be loved by my Father. And I too will love him and show myself to him. So, when Jesus has an opportunity to explain God the Father, he does not pull out a physics book or a science book. He pulls out something so human. He says, love. I think that's so fascinating. Because as someone as myself, I really want to figure things out. I would have preferred if Jesus said, God works like this, like a formula, right? If you do this, and you do this, and you do this, then this will happen. Oh, that would be so much easier. But Jesus says, if you love me, because I love you, you will see the Father. That's confusing for us, isn't it? As a people who have pushed down our emotions so much and spent so much time in our heads to figure things out, the word love, I don't understand that word. But that's the language God uses. Jesus, the man who is fully God and fully human, explains the relationship with Jesus and God, his Father, in very human terms, and we don't like it. This is the man who wept. This is the man who is angry. This is the man who shows sorrow. And he's telling you, yeah, your emotions, God wants those. He wants you to feel the overwhelming presence of God in your life. And that will make a lot of your confusion go away. Because we can't explain God. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Wish I could. I wish I could give you some formula or logical sequence that'd be like, bam, you got it, don't you? Yeah, it feels good, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Yeah, I understand now. I can't. But what I can tell you is that when you believe in God, the sense of peace, joy, anger, emotions are so overwhelming, you go, oh, got it. But it's hard for us to do that. But the way that Jesus describes his Father is in emotional terms. He's like, I love my dad. I love him. I love him so much that I limited myself so I can love you too. And I don't even know what's going on sometimes, but I'll believe that he'll make it happen. This is God. Think about it. God said, I'll limit myself. I'll become human. But I'll trust in my Father to make things happen, and then I'll trust in you to make it also happen. He's like, I'm willing to become a quadriplegic because I know people around me just love me. Defies logic and reason. That's why it's so hard to understand Jesus Christ and God, because it literally defies our reason and logic. Because we wouldn't do it that way. Why would you willingly limit yourself except for love? Ah, 3 letters. 4 letters. Love. Do you understand the word love? I don't. I have no idea how it works. I really don't. Why would I willingly marry somebody else who doesn't think like me? That's hard, isn't it? Why would I willingly love 2 children who every time I say do this, they go, why? Because I said so. No. Do it now. Why? Why would I love these things? They don't do anything I say.
Double tap.
Why would I love a wife who doesn't think like me on all times? I'm telling her, Brenda, if you just do what I say, when I say it, how I say it, then we would have no problem. That's a problem, isn't it? But when you say, I love you, you're not saying I understand you. It's I'm willing to be always around you. When I'm upset, when I'm weeping, when I'm angry, when I'm showing sorrow. See, these emotions, I think, are what Jesus is talking about. And I'm so glad to see that Jesus was emotional. He was not this person that I made in my head that walked around as Superman, who was like a 100% doctor and philosopher and academic and just felt nothing. It was just like, stop it. Do not come close to my holy force. No, the people he hung out were prostitutes, tax collectors, vagrants, sinners, and go, I love you. Why would you love me? Because I created you. Because you're my child. See, I can't explain to you the humanity of Christ. I can't do it. I can't tell you how Jesus is fully God and fully human. I just can't do it. But what I can tell you is that Jesus loves us so much, he was willing to become human to love us. See, that doesn't even make sense. But I believe if you're feeling your emotions right now, you're okay with that. I want you to stop blocking. If you're spending a whole lot of time in your head trying to figure out God, I'm telling you that's a problem. Because God is love. And who understands love? No one. Unless you love God. It puts a whole nother level on things. God is love. You know, that's what it says in 1 John chapter 4. It says God is love. And if you love one another, then God is in you. How is that even possible? I don't know. I can't explain it. But right now, if you feel overwhelmed by the power of God and Jesus Christ, I'm telling you, that's what it is. But we stop ourselves. God, make sense, please. God, make sense. God, please make sense for me. God, please fit in my mind. God, please do what I would do. God, just listen to me. Oh my goodness. Doesn't that sound like your kids out there who have kids? Dad, if you would just listen to me, it would go fine. And you're like, really? 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 I'm like, you know, twice your age, twice your life experience, twice everything. And you're like, really? I should listen to you? Yeah. But what do you, so you got anger, right? Anger. You got frustration. You have confusion. It doesn't compute. It doesn't compute. You have control issues. But then what do you come down to? Man, I just love this person. I just really love them. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're talking about at all. But you know what? I love them. And as a child of God, God is okay when you're upset. You know that? He's okay. He's okay when you sin. He's okay when you blaspheme. Because if you say you're sorry and mean it, he'll be like, don't worry. That's what I came down to save you from. What parent in here would not willingly die for their children? I would. No problem. But who would die for someone else's children? Who would die for the children down the street that keep on walking through your grass? You're thinking more like sniper perch, right? But Jesus Christ says, I am human. And I love, and I weep, and I show emotions. And God gave you those. He did, bro. That was not clean. But God gave you those so that you could understand God. Because if you try to understand God only through the technical sense, I'm sorry, you'll only get so far. But if you allow yourself to stop asking the question why all the time, and just allow God's love to overwhelm you. I don't want to know why Brenda loves me. I don't want to know why. It'll somehow taint it, wouldn't it? I just want to know that she loves me. I don't want to know why you love me. I just want you to love me. I don't think you want to know why I love you. I think you just want to be loved. If you spend so much time trying to understand God, I think you miss the language that Jesus talked about his Father, which is this. I love you, Dad. And Dad said, I love you too. How much can be conveyed in those questions, in those statements, right? Do you love me? Yes, I do. Oh, thank you. Dad, I love you. Oh, I love you too. Mom, I love you. Oh, I love you too. How much does it need to be explained? I don't think so. If it needs to be explained, then I think you doubt your love more than the other person. Jesus described his Father by saying love. Love. You know, in Lamentations, it talks about weeping a lot. Crying. Overcome with pain. But Revelations 21 says all tears will go away. Not emotions will go away, but reasons for crying will go away. I think that's remarkable. So the best way I can tell you, how do I describe the humanity of God, Jesus being fully God and fully man. The only way I can describe it is this: because he loves me.
Dreams are remade. Oh, here in your presence.